Congressman Andy Biggs from Arizona, because we got to talk about Arizona stuff as well. Congressman, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Good to be with you, Dana. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So I got to ask you about this whole situation with the Border Patrol agents. I was actually I don't know if we have the soundbite and I can play it if you haven't heard it. But the President of the United States saying that these Border Patrol agents that were on horses, he talked about it again this morning, saying that they're going to face consequences. And this is after the photographer of those images in question came out and said, yeah, no one was whipping anyone. It was them actually on horses trying to keep people away from their horses, and then also B, keep people from just dangerously rushing across the Rio to try to cross. If he goes after Border Patrol agents, what obligation do you think that governors and other elected officials from some of these border states like yours, what obligation do they have to step in and protect their agents who are doing the job that the federal government won't do?
Well, you're going to have to step in and protect them. I mean, you're going to have to file the necessary lawsuits. And good grief, horse patrol is necessary on the Southwest. Now, if Biden ever went down to the border, he would realize that. But these guys aren't abusing anybody. They have to be on horses to, for one thing, keep the people back where they're supposed to be. This is the Border Patrol trying to maintain the border when Joe Biden doesn't want the border maintained. And so the other thing I would say, Dana, is Joe Biden lies all the time. So when he says we're going to go after these guys, what are the odds that it really will happen? Because, he doesn't tell the truth.
I think maybe we're talking with Congressman Andy Biggs from Arizona. He may, if it helps him to deflect from what's happening at the border, he actually may. I kind of think he may actually try to, make an example of one of them, you think?
Yeah, that's true. They're trying to do anything to distract. So I just want people to realize that the 15,000 people under the bridge that are mostly gone now, the vast majority are gone now.
Well, they're dropping them elsewhere across the interior, and
exactly. And the reason that they're gone is because it was an optical detriment to them politically. So the same thing here, they do want to distract constantly from his failures.
What do you make of it that the President of the United States, when he's speaking about Border Patrol agents that are trying to handle this surge? It is when you have 14,000 crossing in one day, that's a real big problem. And you have hundreds of thousands in just the span of a couple of months, a major problem. When they are being overrun and they're just trying to do their jobs, and you have the President of the United States saying harsher things about them having to deal with his dereliction of duty. Yet in the meantime, we have 10 dead innocents, not to say anything, not to exclude the 13 service members in Kabul, but this same administration saying, we made a mistake and nobody's going to face any kind of disciplinary action. And we also stand by the intel that led to the deaths of 10 people, including 7 kids. He speaks stronger against our own border agents than he does our quote-unquote Afghan partners, Congressman, that just reinstituted cutting off hands and feet as a form of punishment now in Afghanistan.
Yeah, the part of the problem that's always been for me is that his policies and his rhetoric undermine America, and it puts America, at the bottom of the heap. He's always willing to give everybody else the benefit of the doubt while he attacks Americans. The reason you have a border patrol is to give us sovereignty. The reason that your intelligence community is supposed to work well is because you need them to identify the bad guys and make sure that we're not. Look, the 10 lives that were lost, that's a tragedy. But what ticks me off, maybe not as much as that, because you lose 10 lives, but we lost 13 lives with bad intel as well. And so. If nobody's going to be held accountable. Milley's not going to be held accountable. Blinken's not going to be held accountable. Mayorkas is not going to be held accountable, and that is part and parcel of this whole thing. Why I've urged and advocated for impeachment of Joe Biden, because somebody has to be held accountable, and he's the guy that's allowing all of this to happen. A total dereliction of his duty.
Yeah, and of course now they've banned the use of horses there, which is insane. This is crazy to me. I wanted to ask you, just the other day you had introduced a resolution to push the House to vote on the Remain in Mexico Act. That was something that the MPP policy that was was under former President Trump. So for people who were coming in or who wanted to come in and apply for asylum, they would actually have to wait. Normally how it works with every other country and how every other country also handles, how they all handle these asylum processes. But you are pushing to have the House vote on this. And I realize you're outnumbered in the House. But I also realize, too, that we're a year out from midterms, and there's a lot of nervous Democrats. How has that changed the landscape in terms of getting resolutions like yours forward?
Right now, Nancy Pelosi is still using a carrot and stick approach to keep the Democrats in line. But we're seeing more fractures. Yesterday, I think it was 40 or 50 Democrats left the reservation on the NDA, the National Defense Authorization Act, because they wanted to spend more money, and they thought they don't want to fund. They want all that money to be going to social programs, not to be going to the military. And we had 70, 80, 90 Republicans who thought that was bad. We could have taken that bill down yesterday, which is full of horrible social programs.
Yeah.
But we didn't do it. But I mean, the Democrats are still hanging tough most of the time. Oh,
that's, yeah. I look to see, hopefully that'll change a little bit more as the year progresses and we get into midterm territory, which that's going to be a very interesting time. So a couple of the other things you were mentioning, the budget bill and the threat from Pelosi to withhold government. I mean, we really could actually look at another government shutdown, which to be honest, I'm not against that because I feel like that's when we're the safest. But I know that Nancy Pelosi was saying, threatening that if there's no reconciliation, then they're not going to move forward on anything. Is she going to get her wish list? They keep acting like they're compromising on stuff, but so far I haven't seen anything significant cut that would meet the definition of a compromise.
No, they're not compromising at all. And so you've got Sinema and Manchin are holding strong. They're going to need them. And the CR stuff, this is where they're really falling apart internally, Dana. And we'll see. I think that they're dangerously close to a shutdown. Could happen, and if it does, it's going to be frustrating to Pelosi. But you know what? It will reveal just how split the Democrats are, and then how strong this almost 50, 60, 70 member progressive caucus. I mean, these are the total left-wing ideologues that don't like America, how strong they've gotten in Congress.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the ideology that is driving now how we're spending our dollars. And I was reading a piece from a friend of mine who said we should be out in the streets over this, which actually I kind of really don't disagree with on that issue. I have two other quick questions for you. The one on the mandates, the vaccine mandates. I feel like this might go the way of the eviction moratorium. I know that it's gonna be fought and there's gonna be some litigation over this, but I wanted to get your thoughts on this idea that the President of the United States, I just think if you're going to mandate an injection, that the injection do what you said it was going to do 2 years ago and not treat it like a therapeutic. I mean, it should, if you're going to inoculate people, then there should be an inoculation. I'm against mandatory injections, but this is all that, I mean, people rightfully have a lot of questions and they shouldn't be demonized for asking those questions and wanting the government to answer them. But it seems like they're pushing this mandate more than they are information. And how are people in your district responding to this?
My district is very much opposed to the vaccine mandates. And it's a fight. And so that's why I've introduced legislation to stop that. But the reality is, Dana, I've said this from day one. This is not about COVID. This is about bringing control, centralizing control, and that's what Biden's trying to do. And he's trying to get it with this vaccine mandate as well. And I know companies are already capitulating, even in my district, where the vast majority of people oppose. But it's really a problem. Really a problem.
Very much so a problem. Last question for you, and we're talking with Congressman Andy Biggs from Arizona. Of course, Arizona now in the news this morning, trending this morning because of the 6-month audit that was taking place to look over exactly what happened with 2020. And apparently there were 360 votes over the initial count So that really didn't move the. I think there were over like 2 million ballots total. It really wasn't that much of an impact in terms of changing the results. But I think the question that the left always wants to say is a false question. I mean, the voter fraud exists, and I think the question is to what extent does it exist? How widespread is it? We know we know that it's out there. We know that dead people have been registered to vote. I've talked before on this program how I've had people illegally registered to vote at my home. So we know it exists out there. How widespread is it? I just wanted to get your reaction to what was happening in Arizona and this report that came out today.
Yeah, so the report hasn't been let loose yet. What everybody's reporting on is a letter from Maricopa County that released at 1 a.m. Arizona time. That because I was up at 4 and I saw it. It had just been released, and where they were claiming that the audit gave them a clean bill of health. That's not what happened. On the recount, they said, well, there's not material necessarily on the recount, but they go through and there's a table that nobody's picked up on. Well, I shouldn't say nobody because I saw it in some social media sites or internet media sites. And what they were saying is, here's the table. And the total was over 55,000 questionable ballots, everything from people voting who shouldn't have voted. And they go through and they give the categories right there. And then both of those things are just from a portion of the audit. The county wanted to get ahead of the narrative so they could say that everything was wonderful and good. But the reality is there's more to come at 4 p.m. Eastern today because it's 1 o'clock Arizona time when they're going to read the report or the summary of the report, and then the full report gets released in a committee hearing next week.
Oh, boy, that's going to be. I hope that. Well, I'm sure people will be pouring over that as soon as that's released, because people deserve answers on that. They absolutely do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Congressman Andy Biggs from the great state of Arizona, beautiful state. Always nice to talk with you, Congressman. We'll catch up again another time. Thanks so much.
You bet, Dana. Take care.
You too.